Welcome to our webinar on the MSc of Integrated Petroleum Geoscience and the MSc of Sustainable Energy Geoscience. I'll introduce myself. I'm Rachel Brackenridge. I am the Programme Director for both of these MSc programmes. I come from an energy background. I was an exploration geoscientist in the industry before moving back into academia to do teaching and research. So I come from an exploration background, but now my research is focused on subsurface storage and sequestration in a big way. So today's session, we're going to have a look at what these MSCs look like, and there's also plenty of opportunity for you to ask me any questions you have about the programme and what it entails. So let's get started. Okay, I'm not sure where people are from today, but just to give a little overview of Aberdeen, where you'll be studying. So the MSc is run on campus in our old Aberdeen King's College campus. It's a very beautiful campus, I must say, especially when the sun's out. Disclaimer, the sun is not always out, but when it's out, it's absolutely gorgeous. There's a very lovely old part of the city here. The actual MSc is run in the Meston building. This is an image on the right-hand side of the Meston building taken from one of the upper levels of our state-of-the-art library, the Sir Duncan Rice Library. And you can see, looking out beyond the Meston building out towards the North Sea, we're really on the doorstep of the North Sea. And as I will show through this presentation, the energy industry it runs in our veins in Aberdeen. You'll hear helicopters flying over, transporting workers out to the rigs offshore all the time in this area. And we're really closely connected to the sea. So the MSc runs for approximately 12 months. We start at the end of September. And the MSc is split into 3 semesters or 3 half sessions. So semester 1 and 2 are predominantly taught. You'll be in lecture style tuition, and you'll have exercises and tasks and tutorials to do in that time, along with field work and lab-based work. And then by the time we get to May, you're really on your own with a individual-led research project. You get plenty of mentorship through that and supervision through that, but it's an independent piece of work where you delve in to a topic of your interest in a bit more detail based on the learnings that you've had in those first 2 semesters. That's all wrapped up towards the end of August. We have a really good day where everybody comes together to present the key results from their individual project. And then all going to plan, you then go on to graduate on campus in November, or you can do this virtually as well. So I'm going to run through both of these MSCs. There is a large amount of overlap between the two. So I've got a dedicated slide for each individual MSc here. So the MSc in Integrated Petroleum Geoscience, it's been running for a very long time, over 50 years. We just recently celebrated our 50-year anniversary. And it's had many forms over that year, of course, adapted as we've learned more about how to responsibly and safely extract hydrocarbons from the subsurface. But it is still regarded as a really premium training pathway to get into the energy industry. We aim to give you all the knowledge and skills, subsurface knowledge and skills to determine where hydrocarbons might be in the subsurface and how to safely and effectively maximize their extraction. What you'll study, so in the first semester, we really focus on the subsurface skills that you need to then go on and become a petroleum geoscientist. So we focus on geophysics and petrophysics, sedimentology and structural geology. So really a good foundation and a deep understanding of the subsurface. We then go in the second semester to really apply that subsurface knowledge. So you'll look at exploration, production geology, and then just a couple of years ago, we added a further course on sort of late life of basins. So looking at decommissioning, enhanced oil recovery, and subsurface storage and sequestration, CCS, and intermittent geological storage. In amongst that, we also have another course that is split between the 2 semesters called Professional Skills and International Field Trip. So there's a field trip component to that, but also it highlights really how much focus we put on employability skills. We really want to ready you for the workplace. So there's some team working exercises, lots of presentations in front of management or your lecturers or industry representatives to develop those professional skills as well. The Sustainable Energy Geoscience MSc is a fairly new offering that we provide, and it's building on that Integrated Petroleum Geoscience MSc. So at the very heart of it, we still want people to go through that deep understanding of the subsurface. So the first semester, you sit alongside that IPG, the Integrated Petroleum Geoscience timetable, looking at geophysics, petrophysics, sedimentology, and structural geology. And then in the second semester, there's a diversion away from IPG. So we do have some fundamentals in exploration skills, as those are relevant for many aspects of the energy transition, not just oil and gas. But you go on to do a course named Earth's Energy Resources, which has a really strong focus on critical minerals and sustainable mining. The next course is a Geoscience for the Energy Transition course. This encompasses various different aspects of the role that geoscience is going to play in that energy transition. So it's covering offshore wind, geothermal energy, nuclear waste, these sorts of aspects. We then finally come back to join the IPG cohort to look at subsurface storage, CCS, and intermittent geological storage. And then, as I mentioned, that third portion of the course is looking at a topic of your interest and conducting an individual project on that. So the course name is Project in Energy Geoscience. So this can be across petroleum or other energy transition technologies. It's a 60 credit course, so it's quite a substantial portion of the course, and it really allows you to cement your learnings, put them into practice, and really demonstrate how you've learnt over the last year. I've got a number of logos there at the bottom of this slide. This is just a snapshot from this current year. So the students who are currently on the MSc have just started their project in the last week or so. And this is a snapshot of all the companies that are involved in some way or another in those projects. So there's a great deal of industry involvement and industry interest in these projects. And even if the project that you might go on to do is not sponsored or has any direct involvement with a company, you will be given an industry mentor and the opportunity to present your work in front of an industry cohort in the big presentation day at the end of the summer. So just to summarize really what the difference between the Integrated Petroleum Geoscience, IPG, and the Sustainable Energy Science, SEG are. And I've also added, just in case anybody on the call or watching this has applied for the geophysics energy pathway that we also have here at the university, just to highlight the differences. So some of the teaching is combined between the 2 or the 3 MSc programs, but then really in that second semester, there's a breakaway and a specialization into other aspects of interest to then come together at the end there with the subsurface storage and sequestration and onto the projects in energy geoscience. So a little bit about what the highlights of this course are. And I take this image from this year's cohort, engaged in one of our lectures looking at, in this case, it was seal capacity estimation from somebody that comes from industry who's now a consultant and does training for industry people now. So it was a very engaging course, and you can see the cohort all there gathered around the whiteboard. This is in a dedicated homeroom for the MSc, so you have your own workspace that is yours for the year to use as you please. You get very familiar with that room, and there's a lot of lectures in there, and all the group work presentations and things in there. So a dedicated homeroom. The MSc also benefits from a dedicated computer lab. So obviously there's a lot of software that's pretty critical to get to grips with to analyze the subsurface, seismic software, petrophysical software, etc., reservoir modeling software. So we have access to those via our computer lab, which is just down the corridor. So one of the key course highlights that I hear again and again from the student feedback is the field work. We have a very strong level of field geology tuition here at the University of Aberdeen. I've given a couple of examples here. We really benefit here in Scotland, in the UK, from a fantastically diverse geology. And these are two examples of field trips that were run locally, just up the road on the left in the Murray Firth Basin, looking at spectacular faulting and aeolian systems. And then on the right-hand side, that's a field trip to the Isle of Skye that we ran one year. The field trips are subject to change, just based on people's availability and the learning objectives that we want to get across. But we do try to do 2 field trips every year, one more locally in the UK, and then one internationally. And this video is a little bit old now, it's a couple of years old, but actually the students are just back from Utah just a couple of weeks ago. So if you're following us on Instagram or LinkedIn, you'll see lots of footage of how the Utah field trip went this year. But I'm going to pause my voice for a couple of minutes and I'm going to let you watch this video.
Things that people only normally We bring the students out to Utah basically because of the quality of the outcrops. The geology here in the western US is absolutely fantastic, and it exists and it occurs at the surface at a scale that's almost unimaginable to somebody coming from Europe.
The academics are world-class in their fields. They're all very interactive with the students. They spend a lot of time and care in their teaching, and you can tell they care about what they do. And when they're teaching you, it's a very interactive feel, and you feel like they really know what they're teaching and getting at.
These huge scale outcrops are a fantastic place for teaching things that people only normally see on seismic data or in surface or maybe in textbooks. Here, this is world-class geology. So I think field trips like this are an essential part of the program.
The highlight would be the Utah field trip. The fact that you're seeing geology you've seen in class and putting it in a real-life scale and bringing it to life, that's been the best highlight so far.
We hope the students will learn not only small-scale sedimentology and structural processes, but also hope that they can take away from this the large-scale processes and structures that they'll be potentially using in future job prospects.
Well, Aberdeen has the established position and, good academic centre working closely within the industry.
The main reason we take students on the trip to Utah is because it offers world-class geology, which we just don't get anywhere really else in the world. And it's on a scale which is comparable to what we see in many basins such as the North Sea, so we can actually see things on a scale, on a seismic scale. We see relationships which are directly applicable to exploration and production that we don't see anywhere else in the world. And it's a phenomenal place. The course is very, very popular. We have, in the order of about 500 applications a year for 50 places. We're looking for people that essentially are going to become the next generation of petroleum geologists and really the next captains of industry within the future oil and gas industry.
There have been 2 main highlights I find. I like the petrophysical module where industry experts come in to teach you about reading petrophysical logs, and the Utah field trip was especially good.
The background where I came from, I didn't know anything about petroleum geology. But at the point where I am right now, obviously when I go back to Namibia, I can make a huge influence. And obviously my recommendation to the others would be to take this course.
I would definitely recommend this course. I feel it's been very useful.
Okay, hopefully that gives you a wee taste of kind of, yeah, what the field trips are about, but also there was hints of other aspects of the course there, which I'll go through shortly. It was really nice, actually. I haven't watched that video for a little while. It's really nice seeing where some of these alumni from 10 years ago, whenever it was this was filmed, where they've gone today working in companies is fantastic. So yeah, definitely a highlight is the fieldwork. The other aspect that we get a lot of positive feedback about is the high level of industry involvement that we have with the course. So you got a little flavour of some of the key lectures on the course through that video. Many of the lectures have come from industries, such as myself and others, or actively consulting in the industry. But where there's a gap in our knowledge, we don't muddle along and try and teach. We get experts in to do that. So the petrophysical module was mentioned as a highlight by one of the students there in that video. So Baker Hughes have come in for 20 plus years to teach petrophysics, and that course involves a site visit to Baker Hughes, as you can see on the bottom left. It always gets fantastic feedback. But we have a number of companies and consultants come in to teach specific things where required. You can see, yeah, field trips, they come in and do core workshops. The companies that come in, it's operators, it's service companies. We've even got the regulator to come in, the North Sea Transition Authority, to outline some of the policy side of things as well. And the final course highlight is the opportunity for career development. So we really put a focus on allowing you to make that transition from education to employment. And as a result of that focus, most of our students seem to get jobs within the industry because the industry knows that the standard of training that we provide is so high. So plenty of opportunities for mentorship through the course, and particularly during that independent project in the summer. Many of the students go in to companies over the summer with placements, especially those that have secured scholarships. And we do a lot of work to develop soft skills. So many of our assessments are team-based, group work-based, and presentation-based. And that is to help you develop those soft skills, and gives you plenty to talk about when you go on to interviewing for your future career jobs. The other thing that we really do offer is a good network. So you are going to be in a cohort, which is a network for you to take forward into your careers. But also there are a number of opportunities for networking within the industry. So we have a number of the student chapters. So I think there's an EAGE student chapter. We've had an AAPG student chapter in the past. There's a GESGB. You don't need to know what all these acronyms mean, but there's a really great community of very motivated students here in Aberdeen doing social activities, organising lectures, and connecting you directly with people who are actively working in the industry. The image that I've got here is from a couple of years ago now at the project presentation day, and that is an excellent opportunity to showcase yourself in front of industry. And the guy on the right, on the left there, sorry, is a representative from Shell, and they sponsor a prize. So this is our prize winners from that year. And I've hinted in the past that, yeah, there's great career opportunities. It's really nice to see what our graduates have gone on to do. Please do have a look at our website if you would like to see some sort of examples of what they've gone on to do. I've given some examples here from IPG. There's now examples, now that we've been running SEG for a couple of years, there's some examples online about where those SEGers have gone on to as well. I'm sure there'll be time for questions at the end. I'm sure there'll be questions about funding. So just to let you know, we do have a number of funded opportunities. We've recently closed funding opportunities from Neo Energy and Shell. We're going through the interviews for those at the moment. The best place to keep on top of what our funding opportunities are is that website down at the bottom there. It's updated regularly as and when opportunities come in. So please do keep an eye on that. Okay, I'm going to finish off with really why choose Aberdeen. So we are, as I had mentioned, right on the doorstep of the North Sea, which is a really prolific hydrocarbon basin with over 50 years of exploration and production. And within those 50 years, we've done some things great. We've done some things less good. There's a lot of industry learnings. We've really formed this offshore industry and really developed it as well. So North Sea oil and gas industries in our blood, and now I'm seeing a very rapid change to a more energy orientated city. We have a lot of wind farms going up. There's a lot of talk about geothermal in the area. The energy industry and the technical excellence that comes along with it is really in our blood here in Aberdeen. And as I said, things are developing fast in the energy transition sector. So we have one carbon capture opportunity that's being developed just to the north of Aberdeen, but really the North Sea in it overall is a rapidly evolving basin with lots of offshore wind being developed with the opportunities for geotech and site surveys that come with that. Lots of subsurface storage, both permanent subsurface storage, CCS, but also short-term intermittent storage, and that's what my research looks at, is intermittent storage of hydrogen and compressed air. And it's also a basin that other energies are being explored, such as wave and tidal energy. So lots of opportunities for learnings and industry involvement in these areas as well. And finally, if you come to Aberdeen and join IPG or SEG, you're really going to become an alumni of a massive network of students. As I said, over 50 years we've been running this program, and there's a huge international community that's built up over that time. And a lot of these alumni are still actively very involved in IPG. They're the ones that come back and make the case for scholarships and want to get involved in teaching and support the program in the ways that they can. And I've got a few photographs of years gone by to show the cohorts there. Every year there's a lovely tradition that at the end of the year, the current cohort will go to their homeroom and they'll write a little message on the whiteboard for the next cohort coming in. Usually it's more of a warning, so it's often you'll sleep when you're dead or something like this. It's a very intense year, but this was a particularly lovely message to the next year from a few years ago, showing that it is a challenging year, but an incredibly valuable one, and rewarding year. Okay, my final slide. So before I open up the floor to any questions, so I've presented a couple of our MSEs to you today, but if for whatever reason you're actually like, oh, the MSE is not right for me now, I just want to do some smaller sets of training, just to flag to you that we do have some online short courses coming online in time for a September start. So firstly, a Fundamentals of Petroleum Geoscience online learning module. It's been running for a number of years as part of larger MSEs, but we're now rolling this out as a short course that you can do independently. And also the introduction to geological storage and sequestration as a CPD opportunity or short course opportunity. So keep an eye on the website that's listed at the bottom there for any short course opportunities if the MSE is not right for you at the moment. So with that, I will finish off and open up to the Q&A if there's any burning questions you have about either the programs or life more generally in Aberdeen. I'm happy to take any questions. And I would say if there's no burning questions at the moment, I've put my email there, so please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any specific questions that come up in the future. I'm very happy to reply to these.
Thank you for that presentation, Rachel. That was great. There are some questions coming in. So as we mentioned at the start, if you just use the Q&A button at the top, we'll be able to publish those. But one that I've seen is someone is asking, Rachel, do the trips, such as the Utah field trip, have any extra costs on top of the tuition fees, or are those included?
That's a great question. I should have specified that. No, all absolutely included in the tuition fees. I'm just trying to think if there's any additional costs. I think you get a contribution towards an American visa, but maybe it's not fully covered. But no, all the travel and accommodation and tuition obviously is all fully included. I can see a couple of other questions coming in. So job prospects are a couple of SEG related questions. So job prospects in SEG compared to geophysics. That's a great question. So the Sustainable Energy Geoscience MSc has been running just for 2 years. We're in its second year. So we don't actually have any data on this as yet. Certainly in the first year, a significant portion of the cohort came with jobs and they were sort of sponsored by their company, so they were going back to jobs. So we don't actually have data on that. I would say that both SEG and geophysics, depending on which area you are looking to go into, I'm seeing a lot of graduate roles, particularly in the offshore wind, offshore geotechnical sort of space. So I would assume that, or hope at least, that our current SEG students do go into some really great opportunities without too much delay. There's another question saying, wanting to ask if there be specific lessons on geothermal energy. So yes, as part of the MSc in Sustainable Energy Geoscience, there is a course called Geoscience for the Energy Transition, which has a significant portion of that course is made up of geothermal. So this year we got in specialists from the British Geological Survey to come in and give an overview on the very extensive work that they've done on understanding the geothermal potential across the UK. So bringing in specialists that know this like the back of their hand. And as part of that, there was exercises. And then a second week sort of specialising in fluid flow, heat transfer, fracture networks, which are very important for particularly deep geothermal systems. So yeah, this is very much part of a very significant part of that course in the second semester. Thank you for your question.
We've got another question that's come in, Rachel, tying into the question that someone had asked about job prospects in SEG versus geophysics. Someone has also asked, in terms of a career in the wider energy sector, would both IPG and SEG be suitable programs for that, or would IPG be more for someone who just wants to go into oil and gas rather than the wider energy sector?
Yeah, good question. So I think that if it depends which aspects of the energy sector you would want to go into. I think if you were specifically wanting to go into CCS, for example, I think it's going to be oil and gas companies that are really driving this going forward. So probably going into an oil and gas company is a good place to start. So IPG would be a really good way to go. If you were looking to go to broaden your options and go into site selection for offshore wind or geothermal, then absolutely SEG ticks a lot of those boxes and exposes you to many different aspects of how geoscience is going to play a role in the energy transition. So it's quite a good way to test different potential careers, if that makes sense. But yeah, both give you a really good foundation in understanding geological systems and the subsurface. So I don't think you could go wrong with either of them if that was your career aspiration.
Definitely. And as you've mentioned earlier in the presentation, both do have quite a bit of industry involvement. So no matter which program you go with, you'll definitely have that exposure. So leading in from that, someone has asked if you can give any examples of research projects other students have done, particularly any that may have been done with industry partners or projects that have helped people to get jobs in the sector immediately after graduating.
Yeah, trying to think. I mean, so the projects that are done within companies, they always have a business case for this. There's always a business drive behind the project, so it's always directly contributing to the business. So often that comes with some confidentiality challenges for us to allow you to present in front of a room full of industry folk. But so for some examples, so from IPG, very often it'll be for example, a company has a field that they are producing. They would like a student to come in and evaluate the wider area to assess if there's any near field exploration opportunities to just uplift that those volumes for that field. Would be a very typical one that would be occurring in industry. To give you an example that's maybe more of an SEG example, so I have a student at the moment who's working on evaluating the southern North Sea for energy storage. So the plan is that we've got all these wind farms that are being developed off the east coast of England. We can only generate wind energy when the wind is blowing. So what we want to do is generate as much electricity as we can when the conditions are right, and then store that energy until we need it at a later date. And there's a company that's trying to make that a reality. Offshore geological storage connected directly with wind farm developments. And so the student is evaluating the subsurface around about proximal to those wind farms to see if we can have a more integrated system, energy system in these areas. So hopefully that gives you a little flavour. But really, at the start of the year, I go out to students and sort of get them to start thinking about the types of topics they might be interested in, and we really do work hard to match projects with students that have a genuine interest in them and make sure that students are working on something that is going to help them in their future career that they choose to go into.
Brilliant, thank you. So another question has come up in the chat. So someone's asking, what is the demand for geoscientists like for in terms of the job market, especially in the oil and gas industry right now in the UK?
Yeah, it's a volatile time. Oh, it's always a volatile time in the oil and gas industry. There's always an element of luck that you go into the industry just as they really need geologists. It's a bit boom and bust at times. But yeah, at the moment there's a lot of, I don't know how much you have had a look at the news and kept on top of the news, but there's certainly in the UK a lot of mergers happening. And with mergers, there comes reorganizations, but I see that that's as future opportunities as well. So I think the cohort this year may be going to have a challenge getting straight into graduate roles. It might take a year or two until things stabilize here in the UK, but there are other countries around the world where absolutely things are accelerating. Still very active exploration, can't get enough geologists to do the evaluation of the subsurface. So it is a little bit boom and bust. It does come in waves. I'm not going to guarantee that you're going to do the degree and walk straight into a graduate role having finished in August. You're not potentially not going to walk into a graduate role in September. You might have to be a little bit patient. But there are opportunities out there. And yeah, certainly at the moment I'm seeing an awful lot of people looking companies looking for graduates, particularly in the offshore wind sector. So I think if you weren't into pursuing a career in petroleum geoscience, then that's a very vibrant area at the moment anyway. But yeah, pursuing a career in the energy industry, I'm speaking from experience. There's an element of adaptability required. So yes, we will build this into the this resilience that you require into the course. But it's a terribly rewarding career. It's such a privilege to look into the subsurface and look at the fantastic data sets that we have. It's really enjoyable work.
That's great. Thanks, Rachel. So someone who has asked, how have students who have come back to study after maybe a bit of time away from school, so maybe being in the workforce, have they found it challenging? Someone said, they're a bit nervous about enrolling because they've been out of uni for a couple of years now.
I would say don't be nervous at all. You're probably very well equipped for the course. So really the program should be treated a little bit like a full-time job. It's a very intense year. Maybe not 9 to 5 lectures because that's an awful lot, but there's a lot of lectures, a lot of workload to get through. So it should really be treated as more or less a full-time job. We do build in some study time and some self time as well, don't worry. So actually your experience working has probably put you in a really good stead for pursuing this program. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's quite different from an undergraduate degree. So yeah, I think you would do absolutely fine.
Yes, and purely from a marketing perspective, I would say we've spoken with students who have gone straight into these degrees from their undergraduate, and also students who did take time away in the industry, and both said everything that Rachel is saying is it is challenging but immensely rewarding. And there are support services at the university just to help you get settled, especially if you have had some time away from academia. So links to those will be included in our follow-up email.
Great, thanks.
So someone has asked, aside from the field visits, what is the balance between learning the theory and practical work, so such as the kind of homeroom and labs that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, great question. One I've not got an actual figure in my head for, but it's got to be approaching about 50-50, I would expect. It maybe changes through the year though. So the first semester is quite theory based. We do try to build in lab time associated with that. So for example, sedimentology is quite a lot of learning in the classroom, but we do try to add in some time in the core store doing some sedimentary logging. We do try to build in some independent study time, but it's so that first semester is probably more heavy on the lecturing. And then by the time we get to the second semester, most of the courses have a similar format in that the first half of the course is so the basics and the background through lectures, and the second half of the course is then applying that knowledge through a group project or an individual piece of work. So it's probably a bit more towards 50-50 in that second semester. Good question.
Great, thanks, Rachel. So that is all the questions I see in the Q&A. I can see a couple of people are typing in the chat just now. So we'll just give it a couple more minutes for some more questions, if anyone has anything else they'd like to ask.
No problem. And as I'll just reiterate, like, do feel free to reach out if there's any questions that come up through the summer as well. Oh, I've seen a very tricky question come up in the chat. So what's the different industry standard softwares to be used in the SEG models, such as petrophysics, geothermal flow? I am going to have to follow up on that separately because I'm not a geoscientist. I'm not directly involved in those aspects, and certainly I wouldn't want to say too much. I know that as part of that course for the offshore wind, which I'm a little bit more familiar with, coming from a seismic interpretation background, they do use down under Geosolutions seismic software. Although you do also get training in Petroleum to make subsurface models. What I find with all these softwares is there's many of them out there. They all do very similar things. It's just finding where the buttons are very different in each of them. So we give you a really good grounding in Petrel is the predominant one that we use here for any subsurface interpretation and reservoir modeling. And once you've got that good grounding in the theory behind that, you should be able to apply that to any software with a little bit of, sitting down with somebody who knows where the buttons are. If that makes sense. I find I can only remember where the buttons are in 1.5 seismic software at a time, and then if I have to learn a third one, something has to go in my brain. Yeah, great question. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'll wrap up. And yeah, again, to reiterate, if anything does come up, please don't hesitate to contact. Also, if you're in Aberdeen, very happy to show you the homeroom if that's of interest. And I really hope that we can look forward to welcoming you in September for a really, really good, rewarding, hard, but rewarding year of learning about subsurface and energy geoscience. So thank you very much all for attending today.